Sweet. Well, I'll get started a little bit, and like I said, people will probably jump in as they're coming, so it'll be good. So thank y'all for giving me ice cream ideas for tonight. My if it'll move. My name's Eric Howden. A lot of you know me, but I'm the Business Advisory Services Manager over at Architecture. That just means I come from the credit union world. I started as a teller, worked my way up through lending, and spent a lot of time in marketing. And marketing is actually where I encountered Archalytics and architecture using. It was actually my first time getting to use Tableau on the front end, other than like in a college course that I kind of got to use it a little bit. So I was really excited to just get to use it on the front end as a viewer to start and kind of learn more as I went. And now I kind of act as that translator for people of the credit union speak over to our product side, and from product side over to credit union speak, and get to do fun things like this where I just talk to you and kind of nerd out about Tableau things and what's going on in the world of Tableau and stuff. So that's what I'm here to do today is just talk to y'all and get y'all talking more than me. I would rather talk the least in this. So the more you guys have to say, the better. I gotta use this arrow, I guess, with this. So we'll do a bit of introductions. We'll talk about just for anyone who's new, I'll just explain again, kind of like what Devin talked about. What is a user group in the first place? What is the Tableau user group? I do have a quick poll of a nice controversial topic of the day, and then we'll do some member submitted topics. Get you guys talking, and if we get to other stuff, we could talk a little bit about the last conference. I know, ironically, we are back, and last time we talked was the last Tableau conference. Now we're talking about the new one a little bit. So I do have a bit of info on that if anyone wants to talk about that one. And then we'll just have kind of some Q&A, open forum, and good times. So that is the agenda. First things first, this is Mentimeter. We use it to try and get some interactivity. So if y'all don't feel like talking, you can just put some answers in. It kind of sparks conversation a little bit. So I'll give you all the instructions. So anyone maybe who's familiar with us knows how to do this. You just kind of take the QR code on your phone, scan it, or you can go to the website and enter that code, and it'll give you the ability to interact with some of the polls and things. And you can just do that little thumbs up in the corner, and it'll kind of make it pop up once you're getting in. If anyone has any problems getting in, let me know. First things first, I'll say just to introduce yourself, to test this out as well, just checking out what credit union you come from, how long you've been there in your role, or just your role part, actually, I think is what it's going to say, and how much Tableau experience you have. Anyone can also say this out loud if you don't want to use Menti, also to introduce yourself. Like, I came from the world of Lighthouse Credit Union and Granite State Credit Union. I was there for 8.5 years in the credit union space, actually. And I kind of told you guys my Tableau experience. I used it in the last couple of years and now I'm getting to use it over here, besides some college courses that I do count as a little bit of experience with it. Neat from RCU, Chief Strategy Officer 1 year. Or no, I think I did. That is Business Analyst 1.5 years. As I recognize a lot of you, so that's nice. Josh, data analyst, never used Tableau. Very fair. You don't have to. I know a lot of people who actually came from the Power BI crowd who've interacted with us and are like learning the Tableau world. And like I said, I didn't know it until I started using it in the product that we had happened to have other than college course. So, few years with Eastman, data analytics manager, members first, newer to Tableau. Also, kind of nice that you guys are some newer people to Tableau too. That's always fun to get to introduce you to it. Oh, I can't read that one with this in the way. And using college too. Nice. Oh, welcome to Navy Federal for newbie. That's awesome to be building a BI center for enablement. That's really cool for getting to kind of get people excited about it.
Yeah,
Is that
it's
specifically Tableau enablement or?
so Tableau and Power BI are our two anchor platforms, so we use both.
Well, that's neat. Yeah. Well, it
Yeah.
makes sense. I feel like a lot of people are using both for do you guys use it for like different things a little bit?
So I'm still sort of learning how the business units use it. I'm in enterprise data, so I'm sort of I interact with the business units, but I'm not in one.
Yeah.
And I think it is largely preference at this point. I mean, we're a Microsoft shop, and so Power BI is just right there. So that definitely has a lot more users, but there are some real diehard Tableau folks doing some pretty awesome stuff.
Yeah, I feel like the Tableau folks are like there's these die-hard Tableau folks in an organization. When they say they want Tableau, they're like using it for really specific Tableau things. I'll be curious, like I know a lot of people were using mapping, especially for a long time. Like I remember for us, the first thing we were like Tableau was better at maps at the time than Power BI, so that's what the first thing we were using it for. But be curious, kind of what maybe if you find out more about what they're using, you can share in like a future user group.
Yeah, yeah.
That'd be cool. Sweet, got a lot of people from that. So welcome to everyone. Good to introduce yourselves. Thank you. Now, that we kind of know a little bit about each other. Again, what is a Tableau user group anyway? It is not a webinar. This is a community of Tableau enthusiasts. You get to share knowledge, talk about best practices, insights, do these regular meetings. We're now more regular, hopefully in the future. We actually have the next one already scheduled a little bit. Workshops and networking events. It's centered around the credit union industry for this particular one. They're normally centered around a industry or a region. Like there's a New England one versus a Midwest one kind of thing as well. They give a supportive environment for learning, exchanging tips, resources, just learning from each other. Helps you enhance your Tableau skills, stay updated on those trends, and build professional connections between each other. So the nice thing is you have these benefits of you can have this collaborative learning environment, you get to network with each other, enhance your skills, share your resources, and solve your problems. Especially if you have problems that you're having, like, how do I do this in Tableau? We bring the people in here so people can give feedback on maybe ways that they fixed it for themselves and things. So real cool advice space. So that's a little bit about what a Tableau user group is. Does anyone have any questions about like the definition of it flat out before I ask another question? Sweet. Which is just, do you have experience or participation in the professional user groups at all? Whether it's this one or maybe another one, you can answer, or if you're totally new to it, which I was when I started running this for them actually last time. Some occasional, I think, because I recognize a few of you, so I know a few of you are at least that occasional participation. Caroline, it's your first time I invited you to it, so. Sweet, some novice.
But I have been to other Tableau user groups, just not this one.
Oh, that counts as some experience. That's more than me actually when I started, so that's good. I learned that it was a thing when Devin and Hannah were like, "Oh, can you come lead this for us?" And I was like, "Oh, great! This is such a cool thing. I wish I knew that existed when I was like learning Tableau." Regular
Caroline,
participant.
what was your experience like at some of the other Tableau user groups?
Yeah.
Um, so I've been to a couple in a mix of in-person and virtual. So I think when you're in person, people do lend it to a lot more kind of like presenter feel. But then of course you're in person to be able to kind of look around and see what people have pulled up on their computer, what kind of dashboards they have going on, which is cool. And I think depending, I've kind of jumped around in some other industry focused user groups and always found those to be interesting just because you can talk more specifically to use cases and get tips and tricks a little faster than maybe some of the more regional based user groups. So for anyone on this call, if you didn't know, there also are like usually regional user groups set up where you can, it's dicey post pandemic, but usually find them in person. But yeah, it's fun to be able to do groups like this where we can really dig into what's top of mind for specific use cases that we encounter.
That's a great point. Very industry specific for this one, so we're probably all kind of like spread out. I love the idea of doing an in-person one, either in conjunction with like the Tableau conference or some other type of event, but that's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah. I know there was one time we tried to ask last year, and I think just a lot of us were not going to the Tableau conference that year, so we weren't able to. But if we ever have a year that we're all going to the Tableau conference, if we all let each other know, we can definitely check that out. There's a Data Pride tug. I might have to check that out for myself. That's awesome.
Oh, they are amazing. They
Cool.
meet really regularly too, and they're a fantastic group.
Do they meet online then digitally if people are all
Yeah.
over? Or? Nice.
Yeah.
Okay, I might have to check that out. That'll be a
I
cool.
don't think I've been to an in-person tug since before the pandemic.
Fair.
I
Yeah.
have for Power BI, but I'm in DC, so
Ah,
there are a lot of Power BI meetups, but not I haven't been to an in-person Tableau meetup.
dang. Yeah, I know I might have to check out the Northeast one sometime for myself. Question for anyone else then. Does anyone else have any like Tableau user groups that you recommend besides this one? Like any ones that you think are also some other really cool ones for anyone who's maybe in that occasional or experienced area besides local ones in Data Pride, which I'm going to check out now. And if not, that's okay. Like I said, a lot of us are kind of new to it, so this may be your favorite one so far, which is awesome. So next up, this is just showing a little bit where this is pretty consistent with what we saw last time, where a lot of people have either they're newbies to it or they have a little bit of experience. Only a couple are normally experienced or veterans to doing this. So it's kind of nice that we all have the different levels of experience that we have coming in with the user groups in general. So First topic is just a fun little quick controversial poll, which I feel like we've asked this a couple times, but I always love to see the answer in different groups. So that's why I like to ask us. So this was something that actually was rather controversial. It came off of the Tableau's own DataFam roundup when I was kind of going through the articles. It was a really popular one that was coming up a lot in conversation, which was about beyond dashboards. And if you notice at Tableau conference, Tableau Next was very focused on throughout by the Salesforce team in terms of what they had. So there was this big quote around now platform owners and decision makers need to widen the lens. It's no longer about just building dashboards. It's about how Tableau, as part of a broader platform, fits into the company's data and AI strategy. This also came up in the keynote a bunch as well, the like focus on Tableau Next and AI. They had that question is we need to be asking is, can I build this dashboard, but am I ready for what comes next? So with that controversial quote that kind of came with it, the poll that we're kind of asking is, what do y'all think? Do you think that natural language queries will replace the needs for dashboards? Clearly, our Arcalytics has our own thoughts, but we're curious what you guys think. Some initial no's. Think I know where this is going. I wasn't going to bias it, so. I'm actually curious the person who's kind of unsure, if you're willing to, what you're kind of thinking, because there is like a question. I mean, it's clearly a big question that people are actually asking in a bunch of different ways. So I'm curious kind of the thoughts of maybe someone who is saying, hey, I don't really know. But you also don't have to share if you don't want to. Oh, there's two people, so one of you might be able to share. I can pick on someone. No, I'm brave. I believe in you. I'm unsure. I was like, I don't know what'll happen in a few years. For the people maybe who are sure, why are you sure that it will not replace the need for dashboards? You don't have to answer that either. That's okay. The reason I ask is we actually did a poll recently in a larger webinar with like a bunch of different people from around the data atmosphere within our own internal thing. We were talking about kind of some of our own stuff in the Snowflake layer that was kind of the AI world. And there was actually, 29%, 12 participants there did actually say that they thought natural language queries would replace the need for dashboards. And a large percentage also said that they were unsure about it. Now, what I was thinking here, especially with Tableau, it's like with Tableau pushing that particular side of the AI platform and with what we kind of know that data visualizations in general can do, just kind of curious your own thoughts of, why we think, like in my own understanding, I kind of think of it as, there's stories to be told through dashboards that maybe, especially if you get language back in regular speech through a conversational AI, that's going to be a different platform. Some people may get a lot out of it, but some people will need to see things in different ways. So I'm curious your thoughts, if those are kind of maybe some of the reasons, or if you have other reasons that, maybe you have different opinions than some of the people in the last webinar we did. Or maybe the topic doesn't hit because we're not even dealing with AI yet. Because that could be a question. Like, is it really? And I think this was a further question I had in this. Is anyone really trying to use any kind of AI features in any situation in Tableau or Power BI, even on Galen's side? Like, are you using any of the AI features that either of them offer? Or are we still working to even like either be comfortable or even have access to those AI tools that we have that are starting to be developed? Like, Jen, I see you. What do you think? Any thoughts?
So our credit union, so we use Zest AI, and they have a natural language chatbot that's designed to be able to help with lending analysis specifically. And we are currently a beta user for it. And so we're doing a lot of piloting testing. And well, quite frankly, the struggles that we're having with that is, okay, where are you getting, like, I can ask where you're getting this data from, but are you actually calculating it correctly? Like right now, if I'm asking for an average delinquency ratio across the industry, it's looking at everyone's delinquency ratios and then averaging that ratio, which is an average of an average, which is bad math. And I think I've said it so many different times. And I'm like, no, you need to aggregate this and then divide it by the aggregate of this. And so like I think there are a lot of executives that are really excited about the option to do natural language queries and chatbots and do that. But without the people who know data and who know math, building dashboards and building these things out, you're going to get people who, or you're going to get different answers to the same question depending on how you word the question.
Yeah.
And so I think that dashboards and single source of truth um, is going to prevail even where natural language queries may help out and may lessen the work eventually, but I don't think that it's going to replace dashboards.
Especially with that data quality and like the black box of models in which, as lovely as it is that they're talking about the next stuff, it's like if you can't trust even the inputs that are going into it, let alone like the outputs on what maybe those in-house Tableau tools are telling you, you're like, I would rather have just a query that I'm pulling from than anything else. So
That's a great point. Like when you ask a natural language query like that, can you see how it, did that analysis? Can you see the query, against the database somehow? That's a big part of the trust that goes into that.
So I was curious if anyone really does have any other strong opinions on the AI side of things. And if not, actually the next topic is very much something different. So I was like, if you're like, I don't want to talk about AI anymore, that's all good too. So sweet. Well, my next question is actually a member submitted question, which I really loved. So it's talking about what are your credit union's go-to dashboards? This was given by Kathleen Lepke at Forum. I don't know, I don't think she can make it today, but we'll talk about a little bit about what some of those go-to dashboards are and what some of those basic dashboards maybe incorporate that you can't live without. So I love this topic because it gets into, what are we actually doing on a day-to-day basis? So first things first, what are you kind of thinking? What are your credit union's go-to dashboards? This is where you can just kind of get into like we're doing some really cool stuff in the visualization world. Let's talk about it.
Yeah, things that come to mind to me around this one is like maybe a dashboard you've had for a long time that still gets a lot of use, or maybe a new one that you're just starting to do some fresh builds with.
This one probably takes a second because I think it gives you the open question to type something in. In the meantime, though, does anyone just want to share? As in, you don't have to type it in. So does anyone want to share something maybe of like what your go-to dashboards are that you really love, whether especially if it's something that you've done recently that you're really proud of and excited about? Runtime for queries. That's exciting. So just like letting kind of a meta dashboard that lets people know how long it's taken to run on that dashboard.
Yeah, I'm in enterprise data, so
Yeah.
so I mean Navy Federal is huge, right?
Right.
So every business unit has their sort of set, but it seems like every single person wants to know how fast the servers are running. I don't know what they're gonna do with that info. I think it's it's pushing the elevator button, right? Like what does it matter how fast the queries are running? But
Mhm.
it gets a lot of hits all day, every day.
Wow.
It's something I've actually noticed that is a very as a meta dashboard on what we use in our own product, even we see a lot of that use of that because people are often curious of. And like for us, I know transaction data is always going to be the slower one because they're looking at individual transactions. So I know where like sometimes they try and use it to find improvements in the dashboard where they're like, should we parse it up to a different level of detail instead of like individual transactions, maybe another hierarchy of something. So be curious, maybe like there's something like that where, I'd be curious who the users, Galen, of your that is, and like what dashboards are they actually going back to and looking at? Like, are they trying to do continuous improvement, or are they just kind of like status checking on their dashboards?
That's actually a really good question. I guess that I had figured that it was just like I've been sitting here waiting for 15 seconds, which feels like 15 minutes or 5 hours. And how fast is this really running? But I do wonder if people are using it for refining queries. So this is I think this particular dashboard that I'm thinking of is it's more for the exploratory queries. And so while people are doing development, or if people are just like, oh, hey, you know, what's this random info? So that's interesting that might actually be how they're using it, and it's not just impatience of wanting to see the little hourglass ticking by
Yeah.
or whatever they think is going on.
Right. They're kind of like, also, if the query continuously runs at the same long speed, then also like they should know that why are they checking it again if they're gonna
Right.
like, oh, it's just gonna run for this long.
Right, exactly. Oh, look, it went 3 seconds faster this
Yeah.
time. Like, okay. It is actually really helpful because I had noticed in my own development that around 2 o'clock every afternoon, my queries would slow almost to a halt. Like they would go from taking, you know, a minute, maybe two for the really big queries to like 30, 40 minutes. And so I did actually go and I realized that there must be some job that's still running on the ad hoc servers, and it runs. There's just a huge spike at 2 o'clock every day.
Were you
So
able to actually do
it's
anything
okay.
about like to get that fixed, or is it still kind of like inevitable that the 2 o'clock slump?
Yeah, so we actually did a really cool thing that I got to do a lot of adoption for, which was awesome. But we split our servers, so we have well, split our instances. So we have the scheduled refreshes all run on one server, and then a fully mirrored instance, so absolutely identical, but a totally separate instance for people to run ad hoc queries on. And so that just rolled out over the last month, and the adoption was fast. People were like, yes, let's get onto something that doesn't have these major slowdowns at particular times of the day.
Yeah. That's a really neat kind of workaround, like way to kind of improve and actually take something off of a dashboard and like make a real life improvement on other things.
Yeah, exactly.
Nice. Curious for anyone else, do they have any other like dashboards where for them they've actually kind of taken a similarly like very concrete action off of something? I saw someone did also submit like dashboard on current project progress to see also maybe have you had to do any like improvements or kind of actions off of that dashboard or other things that you really like about it? Or someone else can jump in with their own experience, just if you have a cool experience of kind of taking an action off of a dashboard. It's like I know I can speak even for myself. I was a marketer, like I said, through and through. So one big thing that we would often use it for is, you check on how a campaign is progressing, and often that marketer then can kind of go back and update the campaign. Like if obviously if a project isn't progressing very well, if a promotion's not doing so hot, then maybe it's time to kind of pivot the language or kind of change what they're actually doing in that campaign to help improve it and kind of track that improvement. That's definitely a cool area.
That's an interesting one too, from like a data perspective. Where's the data coming from for such a new branch, promotions, product success? Sounds like a lot of different data sources.
Yeah. Any other go-to dashboards for anyone that they're thinking of that they love? It can be an old one, a new one. Ooh, traffic. I love branch traffic one. I'm curious for the person who kind of said this this is one that a lot of times people do take actions off of. So I'm kind of curious like how you're using that branch traffic dashboard and like maybe how retail is kind of interacting with you on that.
Yeah, they were the ones that requested it actually, so they could see, where they were having the most traffic, which branches, using it for staffing modeling.
Anna,
Awesome.
where are you coming from? What credit union?
Members First Credit Union.
Members First. Reminds me of something that ORNL Federal Credit Union worked on too. So that would be a cool, collab opportunity. So we have some info on that somewhere. We might be able to share it.
Yeah. No, I was like, we have a smaller group this time, but I'm kind of curious if anyone else, because I've seen a few of these models in a few of our own clients, but people have talked about them before. Is anyone else kind of doing any branch traffic, staffing related, or call center is another area where like that kind of traffic related dashboard?
I know that we do have one. It's built as a heat map. I don't touch it, so don't ask me how it works. I just know we have one and sometimes it breaks.
Sweet. Happens.
Yeah.
Mackenzie, I saw you came off mute too.
Yeah, so we actually have one, and I can't tell you how the equation works because we had a guy that's been in stats for 30 years develop it, but it technically it looks at the average of the visits per hour in each hour for every day of the week and does a full-time equivalent for what you would need to cover the max busy part of the day. So
Oh,
it
that's-
uses queue theory. So, it doesn't look to say, hey, you're going to have no lines, but it looks at what you would need, like, 5 tellers to cover your 1 to 2 o'clock rush or whatever. Kind of idea.
Yeah. I like how prescriptive that is, where it's like telling them like what they need rather than just this is what your staffing is right now.
Yeah, and that's what it was designed for because the branches were saying they needed more staff, and we wanted a concrete, objective way of doing that instead of just saying, hey, we're real busy for, we're lined out the door for 10 minutes or something.
Yeah. That's cool. I'm curious, Anna, does that resonate a bit with you? Like what you guys are doing? Are you kind of at this point just trying to understand the staffing levels, or like the amount of transactions taking place, or are you also trying to kind of like prescriptively kind of tell them what to staff it with yet?
Yeah, so that's interesting that Mackenzie said that because we've gotten that request from our branch ops is to add that level of detail at the hour, the time level. We just haven't added it yet. But yeah, we're receiving staffing requests and need to be able to justify, and prove that out. So that was the purpose of the dashboard.
Cool. Yeah, it's it's really just that good foothold of like understanding where the transactions are even taking place, and then you can kind of figure out what to do with it once you understand what you even have, which transaction data itself also is like not an easy thing to understand in aggregate like that, and understand like really what's taking place and member service versus teller line versus ITMs and ATMs and kind of like where it's all taking place.
Yeah, there's still some gaps, right? Like we don't have everything in there. So we have transactions, new shares, new loans, but we do financial counseling. That's not, in our data set quite yet. We don't have our, call volumes in there yet. So there's some data that we'd like to add in that we don't have available in there yet, but definitely a good starting point.
Yeah. Is like the financial planning and stuff, is that all just in that like scheduling app basically versus in any other kind of place that
Yeah,
you can grab it from?
we have it in a different application and we just haven't integrated it yet.
Yeah.
But it's something that we would like to.
Curious, Mackenzie, do you guys what kind of transaction data do you know have in it? Are there any like missing areas on that too for you? Or are you guys starting to do you pull in things like the financial services and some of that other stuff?
So this one is purely teller. That is one of the things I mentioned is that, or I told our groups that we don't really have the MSR, what she mentioned. Like we have that data, but we just haven't developed a calculation based on it. They were mainly wanting for tellers. I think our MSRs are, we're sort of at capacity for that. We'd have to build more offices in a few places that are busy enough to need more than a couple.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think I talked with a few people at the summit, the Arcalytics like architecture summit that we did internally, and I remember this conversation of kind of like it is very hard because also the people who are on the MSR rep, it's much harder to also gauge like a teller transaction or an ITM transaction. You can get a better sense of the time and effort that's involved in a clearer way. It's a lot harder to kind of gauge like the average business account opening or IRA account opening or something else where there's such a wide flexibility depending on like the individual circumstances. I mean, if you have like a deceased member, there's going to be a lot more time involved than not. And a lot of it's very like qualitative, often found. I don't know if that's kind of resonated with you guys of when you've looked at that data in other places, you've seen it kind of a bit more qualitative than maybe you'd like to be able to deal with.
Yeah, that was one of our challenges that I was going to say too, is just how to quantify that and weight those those different activities, because a transaction does, takes way less time than opening a new share, opening a new loan. So.
And from personal experience, like an MSR might also tell you a bit different than like what's actually going on, the way that it works and things. From my own personal experience, it's just kind of figuring out like the actual average of those transactions. We actually talked, like this came up where like at a summit, like a branch manager will often defend also, like they'll say like this took an average long time because it's kind of like you want to make sure that you're gauging it out. It's a lot harder to ethnographically maybe or some way kind of actually understand like what is the actual time that things are taking and what's kind of going on there when it's a bit more of a qualitative piece than a quantitative one. So I think one thing that was an interesting potential workaround is like if you kind of engage and work with like the not just the check-in and check-out of those timepieces, but actually like often, especially if you start to get into kind of the documentation of it, you can kind of get a sense of what documentation is involved. That's often sitting in maybe more of the warehouse where you're keeping your documents, whether that's a Nautilus or something else kind of thing, to be able to see. And that helps you kind of gauge the effort maybe involved in different transaction types a bit better. Sweet. Any other thoughts on kind of the transaction staffing levels or any other cool stuff that maybe you're doing otherwise?
I just like to close that one out too. I
Yeah.
shared something in the
Oh,
chat
yeah.
that's like a link to a webinar we did with ORNL, Federal Credit Union, a few years back. But if you're curious starting something like that, it's a good little one to check out.
Sweet, thanks. It was a cool resource to check out on our front end to kind of see what we've seen people do with the staffing levels. Just gives you more perspectives. So awesome. Well, I got another topic maybe to prompt some different kinds of questions. So instead of just an overall dashboard, maybe what are some of the things that your dashboards incorporate that people just can't live without, like certain kinds of filters or certain kinds of stylistic choices, or something more quantitative to the setup and things that are kind of coming out of it, even calculations that you really love or something. Just something that people can't live without in the kind of visualizations you do. I'm a sucker for a branch filter. That's what I would say if I could type it in, is always having branch filters because branches always care about their levels of detail. Also, I'll put the QR code back up, but for any new people who had joined, you can choose the QR code, you go to the website, and you can answer these questions here. But again, anyone can also shout it out if they want to just say something that their dashboards that they can't live without. Carolyn, I know you're allowed to too. I was like something you
Yeah, I was
think
gonna
about on
say,
dashboards.
oh, I have found this across every industry, across every department. I always run into people who say, but I need this to look like a spreadsheet because that's what I use. And I feel like that's always like, instead of originally taking that and being so mad and being like, I've made this beautiful dashboard that's so intuitive. I now have changed it to be able to just say, that's their gateway drug. That's how they're starting their visualization process. So, the basics of something that looks familiar, aka a spreadsheet, which I feel like Tableau actually did change over the past few years to make it easier to kind of create that and get people with starter dashboards.
And also like shout out to Galen, where I was like Power BI was kind of doing that even more originally. Like I know maybe that's a strength to some people sometimes using Power BI originally, and Tableau had to kind of catch up on that area.
Yeah. Very backwards. But I think also like we were talking about mapping earlier, and yeah, mapping comes up a ton of, hey, can I see this in a visual way that tells me where things are happening?
Yeah. The trending also hits hard as someone who had to do a lot of like month over, especially like net new membership was always month over month, year over year, like and year to date. And we needed year to date and year over year and all three, like to basically show the different movements because you have different KPIs. So for the person who said trending, I was like, I feel that for you. I don't know if you have a more specific way that you care about trending. I'm also curious who said what dog and dino mean. I didn't know if that was like an automatic thing or the good, like what those are. Those are, if someone said that, I'm really curious what you mean. Is it like a logo or you're just being silly? That's fine too. I'm curious. Also, the good has a dot over it, which I was like, I don't know what that is.
I'll
Maybe it was
admit,
just something that the system did.
Yeah, right. I know that I had a window open for this and now I can't seem to locate it. So I'm like, is it me? Am I accidentally typing those words? So someone else did. Uh,
My first guess would be someone handed their phone to their child and their
Yes.
child is typing words. Like
very
my
good
phone,
words.
my kid does not have my phone. We're safe.
I think that a dog and a dinosaur would vastly improve every visualization with, I think executives should appreciate that, but
You're right. What can't dinos do is the real question.
dogs can do what dinos can't do. So that's important.
So I was a federal contractor until I joined Navy Federal 3 months ago, and at the federal contract that I was on, they created their own chat GPT and they called it Dino Chat, and the icon was a dino, and this was used across all of OPM, which, if you know anything, is huge. So yes, dinos make everything better.
So were you the dino answer, Galen?
No, I wasn't.
Oh.
No.
Oh,
That's all right. What was your
love
answer?
that.
I'm curious.
Oh, I didn't actually answer
That's okay.
one
What would
because
be
I
your
haven't seen
answer?
enough of the dashboards to know.
Yeah. Do you have anything that like you think, what is your like thing that you like to see on a dashboard then, if not an executive?
So I like I don't know if there's any one thing that I like, but really clear, easy to use navigation is huge. I am fully revamping an inherited dashboard that the executive said, we want it to look like a website. And so this is in Power BI, not in Tableau, but there are over 800 bookmarks. And if any of you know Power BI, you probably just cried, or at least understand why I'm crying. And so don't do that. Don't create things that are not, the platform is not built to handle. Both Tableau and Power BI have good navigation. Use it.
That's huge. It's interesting because like I've found the bookmarks can sometimes be helpful for people trying to replicate reports on a regular basis, kind of like saved views in Tableau. But also they shouldn't be used to just kind of like be all that you have and then replace
Exactly.
navigation. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Like I remember, oh God, what was it in Tableau that came out that this was, oh wow, this is pre-Salesforce days, but there was something, it was like you could do an overlay and people got all in to overlaying one chart on top of another to do, I can't even remember the specifics, but it was like all of a sudden every single Tableau report out there had this like whole series of overlays. And it was like, no, that stop. I don't think that's even a thing anymore, but I remember when that exploded.
Both Caroline and Jen both like nodded their heads in
You know
anxiety.
what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah.
Gosh. Well, that's good. That I think navigation, and that speaks to a lot of this, where we talk about, drilling down and having the right things on it. And even spreadsheet like, I think speaks to like navigation ability, like being able to navigate something cleanly. There's oftentimes like a spreadsheet is giving you clean navigation itself. So in place of a visualization that almost can sometimes overcomplicate what people are trying to ask of it. That's cool. I'm curious for demographics too, if the person's willing to. What demographics are you thinking of? Is it because there's a whole bunch of, I was kind of thinking, are you thinking like drill down into things like gender and age and tenure, or are there other things that you're trying to drill down when you say demographic? So that could also mean like, I've seen people use it kind of more closer to like membership type or subgroups, like our different segs that we have or something like that. So. Or even if this not person, but someone else has a thought on like demographics that you like to be able to drill down into potentially. I think it's obviously you have to be careful about what demographics you drill down into too. I was thinking like I came from the lending world, so I'm like, Hamda, you shouldn't be drilling into certain things when you're dealing with mortgages and stuff. So like what you can and can't drill into and why you're drilling into it can actually make an impact of like you shouldn't inform a decision in a way that maybe biases the data one way or another to be able to drill down into gender or ethnicity or race or other things that maybe we can't drill down into for good reason. They do come from that lending and mortgage reporting world where you can get in all kinds of trouble for that. So And the lost memberships too. I was like, it feels like the trending and the lost member people. Maybe this connection again. That net new membership is something. Curious, Philip, do you have any specific? Actually, I'll just ask. Do y'all have any specific dashboards you're using that are really cool that you're tracking net new membership with, or like ways that you're kind of tracking it at all? Because I know I feel like we all have. I used to make this in Canva, frankly, and it was like, whether are you just doing a line chart, are you doing something more interesting than that, to make it? Because net new membership, I know executives care about. So are they like, how are you kind of visualizing it for them? If you're
So
the
one
one
of
visualizing, yeah.
So one of the ways that we're doing, net new member growth is one of our KPIs for the year. And one of the cool things that we've built is each branch has their own individual goals. Because like some of our branches, like that
It's
they
different.
they see 5 people every day, and
Mhm.
other branches see 500 people every day. And so you just have different goals for them. But we actually created a reference table with those goals, and then within the visualization, we have a pace chart, in addition to like actually tracking, that new member growth. But then also the pace chart to show if they're behind goal, ahead of goal. And then that can update as they log in, which is really helpful as branch managers are trying to track their growth and, kind of see how that goes. We also do that with deposit growth as well. But having that pace chart in there is really helpful for them.
Yeah. Do you color code the pace chart too based on like above or below using a scheme? Is like red to
Yeah.
green, or are you doing like your own brand colors or?
I think, well, so our brand colors are mostly blue, and so it tends to be a
Yeah.
red to blue
Yeah.
rather
Okay.
than a red to green. But yeah.
Cool. I know it's always interesting to see how we mix these psychological signals of like things like green, yellow, red versus doing something more like your brand color range to kind of signify good or bad, basically.
Yeah.
Neat.
Hi, this is Gil.
Hi.
Just in harmony with what was being said about in terms of looking at members lost and total members and so forth, our board and our executive team, the ironic thing is we had built out this dashboard that was what we felt was super sexy. And then what ended up happening is they decided that, well, you know what, we just kind of want a bullet one page that basically just give us the highlights. So you build all these bars and graphs and all this wonderful, beautiful stuff. And then they said, well, can you put it all on one page and just give us some summary level metrics that tell us, are we up or down depending on the metric? So for instance, members lost, they wanted to see year to date, they wanted to see that event's goal, and then they wanted to see the variance based on that. And then they wanted to see a red or green dot that indicated whether it was plus or minus. So, in at least my experience, one of the biggest challenges, at least in terms of providing these kind of metrics, has been, and in terms of demographic stuff, they want to look at new membership coming in based on Gen Z, millennials. They want to see who's coming in. So that incorporates basically some data from an external source where we have to basically qualify who our members are, where are they generationally. Our audience and our footprint tends to be older, a lot older. And
Credit Union.
yeah, and so as a result, they're trying to transition into the new world, and they want to see, are we building momentum with new members based on promotions and activity to get newer, younger members coming in. One of the things they track is net promoter score. So they want to see, would you recommend our credit union and so forth. But they're also tracking some other interesting metrics internally. So they qualify all of the stuff I just talked about as brand awareness, but
Yeah.
they also track what they consider to be what they consider organizational excellence. So within the organization, what's our employee engagement score look like in terms of how well our employees are responding to changes in the organization? What's our promotion rate like in the organization? And what's our turnover rate as the organization? So they're looking at different components in categories: brand awareness, organizational excellence, and then technology optimization. So how are we doing with digital transactions, debit and credit card transactions, mobile wallet, et cetera? So it all comes together in this one page where they just want to see the highlights and hit the highlights to see how are we doing plus or minus based on the goals that we've set for these different metrics.
Yeah. I'm kind of curious then, because I love that because it's like a key KPI dashboard that I feel like most of us kind of have to deal with and do. And I'm curious because what I used to always get is they loved that up until they would go to you and they would say, well, it went up or down. Why did it do that? And kind of how you talk, because you talk about like bringing in things like promotions and net promoter score and things. Have you had success in ways to kind of have drill downs where they can say like, this went up or down, and these are the people who went up or down, and kind of like start to get towards the why it may have gone up or down?
We haven't had to jump off that bridge yet, but with Tableau, since it gives you the underlying kind of data, the detailed level data to see who you've lost, who came on, when they came on, etc. Uh, a lot of the times those questions end up going back depending on they go basically to the senior management, thank God.
Yeah.
They're the ones who are basically setting the goals and they're tracking their goals and their activity. The dashboards they're all using now is just like a touch point to see, well, how are we compared to it? And then they speak to the whys. They're actually able, thank God, right now to speak to the whys. Our marketing team speaks to the other stuff in terms of the digital trends and mobile wallet and text to and from members and so forth. So they're able to actually speak to it. So they don't push us too hard to qualify the dips and the spikes and so forth.
That's nice. And it's good. And it's good that the people who are in those different areas seem to have a bit of control and understanding where they can kind of answer those whys, which is really great. Yeah, it makes me think of my own horror story, actually. This was just for my own personal experience where we actually did, it's from personal experience of that. Like, it went down, net membership went down, and we were like, why the heck did it go down? And they came to marketing because we had done the dashboard to be like, why did it go down? And the issue was actually the answer of all places sat in compliance and risk, because what had actually happened with the membership numbers they had been giving to marketing, a sheetment had happened. So it was like, oh, this is the season we had just written off a whole bunch of dormant accounts and kind of closed out a bunch of memberships. So it wasn't actually like members. But for us, actually, we created a whole active member definition because of this, where it was exactly the point of like the definition between an active member and just a member period can make the difference of when you say net new membership, are you talking about everybody, including ones that'll just drop off because they're dormant? Or are you talking about actual active accounts with kind of different qualifications of transactions or account levels and things? So that was my own experience, where I was like, it's lovely that you have kind of the different departments that seem to have, the ability to answer those whys and feel empowered to kind of do that for your executives. So that's sweet. Seeing that, I was like, we're down to the last few minutes. I'm actually going to skip some stuff and come out of share real quick. But I wanted to share with the last few minutes. But last question, I was like, does anybody have any real like problems or kind of questions on the Tableau world that you kind of want to ask each other, especially within the credit union specific world of, do you guys have any kind of last minute topics you're thinking of that you want to say, hey, I'm doing this weird thing in Tableau, something weird's happening. What do we do? And if we can't get you the advice, we'll get you someone who gets the advice. But anyone have any weird questions on the Tableau world while I pull up the final stuff?
I don't have anything weird yet, but I will be sure to reach out to you guys as a resource in case something really weird comes up soon, because I guarantee it's going to happen.
Yeah. And the nice part, we actually have there's a couple people not even on this call where I was like, if we can't answer it, there are much smarter people, even in the architecture world, in the Tableau world, where I'm like, I can point really weird questions at people who came from Tableau as a company who can work on those kind of answers if we have any weird stuff that you guys come up with. So give us the cool questions. And if we can't answer it, probably not. If it's weird enough, we'll give it to someone who can answer it even more for you. Or you can answer for each other. That's honestly the ideal thing. If someone else is dealing with the same thing, we'd rather you kind of share with each other those best practices. Whether it's to do with Tableau or you're doing something like, what does it mean to be an active member versus just a member, or some other like credit union conversation that's affecting your visualizations. You can do that as well. Let me reshare. I'll skip some of the Tableau conference stuff. Maybe another time we can spend some time kind of reviewing. It sounds like it was very Salesforce heavy anyway, and where we're not really into the AI conversations today, it was very AI heavy at Tableau. If you check out the keynote, by the way, spoilers. So feel free to do that. It is available for their website. But in the meantime, I'm just going to share a last little logistics slide, which is to let you know we're going to be more consistent with meetings going forward, setting up on the quarterly cadence for now. If we start to get more engagement, especially for people who want to present for us or kind of share something, it's not even really presenting, it's doing this where we can have a conversation that you want to talk about or a topic. The more we can get those, the more often we can start to do these. So if you guys want more of the cadence than quarterly, we can start to work towards that. In the meantime, it's quarterly, and we're just looking for use cases, tips. If you don't want to say anything, feel free to share, either email me directly, which I'll give you my email in a second, or you can go onto that little forum and add just a topic idea, and we can incorporate it into our presentation instead of having you have to share anything. We can bring in Tableau experts to talk about. So again, if you have an issue, we can actually bring one of those experts on and they can kind of talk at us and kind of give a formal presentation on something you're interested in learning more about. So we want to have that collaboration. The more, like I said, you can talk to each other in the forum too. If you have questions, post them there and people can talk to you in that forum as well. So that's a really cool space. If anyone doesn't have access to the forum, definitely you can just email me after, let us know, and we can get you access to the Tableau user group digital forum as well. So if you have any topics, you can email Devin, who is also on the call, is dcook@architecture.com. There's also my email address, which is ehowden@architecture.com. So real easy emails to remember. If you have any topics, if you want to speak, if you have things you want to present on. And the exciting part is the next announcement. Devin, correct me if I'm wrong, it should be September 17th is going to be that. So you can start to mark your calendars. We'll get that event for the next quarterly one, September 17th. So in between conferences, there's only banking conferences in those weeks, nothing credit union that I can think of that was really big. So good time to kind of drop in and learn a bit more about Tableau. So thank you.
That's what we have penciled in. Would love to hear if anyone has like specific preferences around, you know, day of the week, time of the day. It's your user group, you know, so feel free to let us know and we'll be happy to incorporate that in.
Yeah, that can include this is too late in the day. So you're like in a different part of the country things. If it's, because for me, I know it's like headed towards 4 o'clock in the East Coast. If you're like, this doesn't work for me, or it's lunchtime on the East Coast or something, let us know and we can finagle what time it actually takes place.